Thank you. Hello and welcome, everyone. So, we are here today at the behest of the universe to give you some stories that, as we are trusting, will assist you in your own quest to transform whatever is not you think is not working in your life right now. So, it's not so much about what's working in our life and what's not working in our lives. It's actually, are we working it? It's never something that's not working. It's we who need to do the work. And it should not even be work. It can be play. I like to play with transformation. I think the universe is our playground. And we came here to play with all the different ways of being in a body and being human. That said, let's bring in our co-hosts. Let's start with Pete. Pete, what is your story of transformation that you would like to share with the audience today, since we are focusing on the incredible, magical pool of transformation to really bring our lives up to a much higher level?
Okay, for me, wow, 5 minutes or so to say many stories. I would say for me, it's been about unclogging my body, and didn't until I started the journey, I never knew how, let's just say, compromised it was. It started 18 years ago purely on the food and other protocols. I first came across Jinshin Jiu-Jitsu, which was an amazing protocol for me anyway. And I feel it's an amazing protocol. It seemed like a lost art that I knew. I've come across many other Reiki and quite a few other different protocols, but they didn't really resonate for me. So the Jinshin really did it for me. I was doing a bit of Qigong at the time, and a little bit of Falun Gong. However, it was the Jinshin, and I recognized, I could really do it driving, sitting down on a train, a bus, because you can work with your mudras. Each finger connects to two organs. And I remember these more, there was elders in the group of this, it was the Qigong class actually, and they were mentioning the Jinshin. That's what put me onto it. And they were giving me a few positions to try. So I was practicing them, and to my amazement, feeling so much going on. I am, let's just say, when I was 17, I did different groups and got quite well rehearsed with my dream state and learned astrology and things like that. So I could really sense what was going on. And obviously there had been a kind of critical change in my life at that time. It was literally a wake-up call. So I slowed down to integrate more practices so I could be more sensitive, to be honest, and observe different things coming in. So the Jinshin was the first one. I believe that cleared my runway, cleared my meridians to open up that I could receive more. And so it like cleaned out the bin, I think we're too backed up. All these different allergies, etc., and labels.
Pete, I'm going to stop you there because there are a lot of people tuning in who have never heard of Jinshin Jiu-Jitsu, have no idea what chakras or meridians are. If you could please explain that as somebody who's never heard of it, and why you actually think that that's the reason why.
So you could imagine it like if you're familiar with acupuncture. So it's classed as the grandmother of acupuncture. So as opposed to the needles going in certain positions that you learn, you learn to put the hands in the similar positions as opposed to needles. Let's just say on that line. So it's clearing the meridian line, which in theory is clearing energetics, energy. And so it's like pulling out dams, in water runways. And which equates to shock and trauma. So, and symbiotically, what happens from that is whether toxic foods, toxic relationships. So we sort of lose our senses of more living foods, I would say. So I won't spend too much on the Jinshin, but that was my main breakthrough. I look back and I don't give it as enough credit. And, when I came across it, it was just like, wow, I can heal myself without having to keep going. Not that I did a lot, but going to someone to, help heal me. So it was beautiful. It's really like heal thyself, know thyself. So that was the journey for there at the beginning. And then I had this big fire, big sort of safe wake up call for me. I was shown if I wasn't going to change then, that I would be gone within that year. So I really wanted to be around. Youngest of 6, other siblings have gone. So, and a big part of my journey in terms of the food and questioning was when I was 27, I had an elder daughter. She was about 33, 34, and she died of bowel cancer. So in retrospect to this, thinking about what I was going to say here, I recognized that had such a big impact, more than I knew actually, because of being so dumbed down and so, not in a negative way, but just so in the system and not really liking yourself, loving yourself, nurturing yourself, sort of victimized by paying the bills, whatever it may have been that I am accountable and I created. So that was a big part of it. So I didn't want to, it's like I wanted to be around. I had a 4-year-old daughter at the time and teenage boys. So, I wanted to be around for them as well as myself. So then I came across the food. So I was really open, made a point. I'm going to listen. I'm going to just, what comes my way is meant for a reason, and start being more awake to the symbols that are coming my way. Met this really interesting guy who really knew his nutrition. It turned out he was 3 years on a raw food or living plant-based journey. We had some amazing talks even before I knew that. So and here, what had he done? 26-day water fast in the Andes. So it was an amazing grounded guy. I must admit, there's some very ungrounded people there in the raw food, in all walks of life, should I say. So he was a great person to meet. Within the first 2 weeks, I was living down Brighton. I went to a potluck. I just could not believe it. I think people were getting bored of friends, close friends. I was just, oh my gosh, I'm like in heaven, and it felt like, all I can say, it felt like my life quadrupled. Everything was going faster, which makes so much sense now. Once you clean your inner, your inner is a reflection of your outer. So, it might not make sense for some people here, but we are very clogged and sluggish, and the foods we intake really is a symbiotic relationship of a result of not being guided very well, not really knowing how to love oneself. Our parents do their best, but we do our best, but it's, ticking certain boxes, which still could be much more better, really. So that really brought me awake, So the foods, I could not believe, just by going lighter with the foods and the fruits and the salads, looking back in retrospect, I realized it was just cleaning me out, as opposed to whether fish and chips. I was still doing fish at the time. Yeah, with 3 teas, 4 teas a day, 3 sugars in my teas. I mean, cheap pizzas, you name it, to a degree, I had it. So I went straight into it and didn't never turn back since, really. Very once I get my focus on something, I can be very disciplined. So I put my discipline into that and into the food, and I learned so many things on the way, so many detoxes, which was after about 4 years: water fast, green fast, dry fasting, gallbladder, liver cleanses, parasite cleanses. And this is all part of the package. I would strongly suggest people, go into the parasite cleanses, obviously get some advice, maybe don't go too extreme. And, it's not an easy journey per se in terms of the mindset, because what I recognize in terms of...
You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up.
Okay.
You're breaking up a little bit, so we're not hearing everything you're saying.
How about now? Is that okay?
So we're going to come back to you for that reason.
Okay.
No, I think you should. What I'm going to suggest is that you simply log off and come back on, and hopefully that will fix the problem.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So
okay.
I hope you heard me. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. So Pete just spoke about being clogged up. Phil, would you come on and just let us know when you hear somebody says, I was very clogged up, do you actually empathize? Is it something you can associate yourself with? Or is it something that is new to you?
No, absolutely. I totally agree there with Pete about us people, humans, being clogged up and compromised. That's something on my journey that I've really had to look at, and lots of things that reiterate what Pete was saying, talking about colonics and enemas and the raw food diet and juicing. For me, juicing's been a really big deal for me, and looking at the quality of the food, what's in so the quality of the food, what's in it and what's not in it. So looking at the pesticide and pesticide residues and the nutritional deficiencies, especially with enzymes, the deficiency of enzymes in our food, that then really compromises our ability to digest it. And also in between meals, when our body's empty, that ability to create the enzymes that then cleanse us out proteolytically, which means proteolytically, systemically, between meals, our body then produces enzymes that are they're the cleanup crew. So they go and clean up our bodies and all the undigested proteins and fats and carbohydrates and so on. So definitely the clogged up thing. Then we've got clogged up. Our endocrine system and our glands get clogged up, and then they can't send signals to the organs, and then the organs can't work and they lose communication with each other. And that was something that I learned fairly recently, the ability for the endocrine system to communicate with itself and each gland, and then also each gland to communicate with the organs. And of course, if that communication is broken down because we're clogged up, then we've got communication problems, literally, not just those communication problems, but the internal dialogue is heavily compromised by the word that I really like is occlusions. Occlusions create like weather fronts, right? So they create blockages. So the information and the messages then can't flow through the body. And as we clean out those occlusions and blockages and the clogging, then the information within us can flow, our brains can work better and clearer, our digestion starts to get better, and we just start to perform on a better, clearer level. So that I have a real affinity with what Pete was talking about with being clogged up.
Thank you for that. So this is something which I think most people do not take into account. And most people forget that the body has to communicate with each other. So if we've got a clogged lymph, if we've got a clogged liver, if we've got a clogged kidneys, these are the eliminatory channels of the body I'm speaking about. If we've got clogged lungs, if we've got clogged colon, or intestines are clogged, or skin is clogged, which is why people forget that you have to be careful what you put on your skin, in your hair, and especially the water. So in my new book, Being Healthy, I speak a lot about water, because we actually use the water more than anything else to either cleanse ourselves or toxify ourselves, or create more toxification in the body. Just think about it when you take a shower or a bath. How much water you're putting into your skin? Your skin is very permeable, and anything we put on our skin is also permeable. So it's not just about food. It's also going to be affecting, if we have or the eliminatory channels of the body clogged, it's also going to be affecting tremendously the brain. So our mental aptitude or mental illness or lack of will escalate or decrease depending on just how clogged up our bodies are. This is why when we're thinking about transformation, I'm glad that Pete touched on the fact that with him, what stood out for him was that he was so clogged up, because most people aren't even aware. Most people watching this will say, no, that's not me. I don't have that problem. And yet, our air is so toxic, especially depending on where one lives, or actual capacity to breathe deeply has been very compromised by so much toxicity in our homes and outdoors as well. And we don't even realize it. And that's why when I use the word transformation, I ask people to look past just their diet. I look at their thoughts, their language. The language that we use pollutes our bodies tremendously. We can take the most exciting, incredible, very biodynamically grown, or just wild foraged anything, a mango or any fruit in the wild that's really almost perfect. And if we are in a state of anger, anguish, resentment, or we're in a state of hurt and we put that in our bodies at the same time, what we've just done is taken something that's extremely alkaline and healing and put it in a place where there's no space for alkalinity, where everything is acidic, and our thoughts will then change the energy of that mango or that fruit, whatever we're putting in that's very healing, into something that's also toxic. So our thought patterns, the actual energy with which we bring in food into our bodies, the very energy in which we actually digest the food. If you're digesting something and you're in the middle of a fight with somebody and you're really angry, or you're feeling disconnected, guess what? You just disconnected yourself also from the actual cleanliness and healing quality of the food that you just put in. So I think human beings focus too much on food and not on themselves. In other words, you're the receptor. You are the vehicle for this food. It can be transformed into your body and raised to a much higher vibration, or it can also be depleted and assist in depleting you more, no matter how high the vibrational energy of the food. So we need to actually, as a receptor for this incredibly vibrant and high energy and high vibrational food, we need to also raise our own vibrational energy to meet the high vibrational energy of the food. Otherwise, it just becomes an act of outward behavior and not any responsibility for the fact that we determine if that food will get digested properly or not, if any residue will get eliminated properly or not, and if it will be used by the rest of our bodies. Because if our thoughts are clogged up, we also will have a body that's also clogged up. With that in mind, I'm going to bring on Sabina. Sabina, I would like to have your thoughts on this, and then any stories of your own transformation as well.
Yes, so the clogging up, that is definitely something I experienced. I was actually, as a child, I was in the first 19 years, I was always, my nose was clogged up. I couldn't breathe. I always had to breathe through my mouth. And there was also lots of clogging up my digestive system. I could only go to the bathroom like every 3 days. So I was seriously clogged up. And I was living on a diet with high in bread, lots of dairy, lots of sugary drinks, lots of meat. That was my diet. No greens, no salads, very little fruit. When I had fruit, I had it on top of the meat and the potatoes. I had the fruit afterwards. So that's the diet for 19 years. And then at 19, I came across a book of the raw food lifestyle, and I switched from this diet to eating only fruits and vegetables, and the clogging opened up. I could actually breathe. I never had to wear a tissue. Well, I always had to have a tissue box with me wherever I go, and I didn't have to do that anymore. I could breathe through my nose instead of my mouth, and I could actually go to the bathroom much more often. So that was the turning point. Just changing the diet, doing one thing only, created an opening. And then along the way, I came across other techniques and tools to create more opening. But I'm going to go into that deeper later. So that was it for the clogging. And do you want me to go into the story also?
Yes, please go ahead, Sabina. Yes, please.
Okay. Like on my journey, I had many, many, many transformational moments since I started really early. But I want to actually today speak about mainly the emotional clogging. So about 9 years ago, I was in a relationship with a man. We considered ourselves married, even we didn't have the paper. And we committed to be together for the rest of our lives. And one day we had an argument. It was really bad. It got really ugly. And he stepped in his car and drove away, and he never came back. I've never seen this man again. And that caused like deep heart pain for me, to the point that I was actually unable to function. I was crying all day long. I had a part-time job at that time. I couldn't work, and my child was very young still. I couldn't really take care of him. I was just crying. I was in such pain. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. At night, I would wake up with sharp pain in my heart. I was barely able to breathe because the pain, it was so deep that, about 4 weeks later, I realized I cannot go on like this, because I was one night on the balcony in the house I lived in the forest screaming, and I was ready to jump down because the pain in my heart was so deep. And then my son appeared and said, "Mama, what are you doing?" And I was just naked on in that balcony on my knees, screaming my lungs out. And that moment I realized I have to do something. So I hired 2 people. I worked with a coach who was focused on relationship, and I also worked with a shamanic healer. And in my first session with this shamanic healer, I said to him, "I think I have to do ayahuasca." And he said to me, "No, no, you don't need this kind of medicines. The medicine you need is inside of you, and your medicine is in your pain." So the work he gave me to do was every time I felt that pain, that sharp pain in my heart, to go out in the forest and to express my pain, to really feel the pain, and to express the pain physically and verbally by shaking my body, moving my body, whatever movement I need to do, and releasing it through sounds, through screams, through crying, through any kind of verbal. So the next night at 1 o'clock, that was usually the time I woke up, and I had this sharp pain again. So I went down in the forest. I released. It took about 2 hours. I was in such pain, but 2 hours of shaking, crying, moaning, screaming, making animal sounds. There are all kinds of sounds coming out of me, fluids coming out of my nose and out of my mouth. I was like releasing so heavily, and I thought this pain would just never end. And at some point, about 2 hours, I suddenly felt some release. I suddenly felt like a lightness in my body. And then after the lightness came the joy. I suddenly laughed, said, "What am I doing here in the middle of January, it's snowy, I'm barefoot in the forest, screaming my lungs out. And because of one man, when there are like billions of men on this planet, this whole idea suddenly became ridiculous. I started laughing. And then the shaman, the day before, he told me that if you've experienced any joy, you have to celebrate your joy, because pain and joy are related. They come from the same source. And the more pain you experience, the more potential for joy there is. So when you get to the other side, you have to celebrate. So when I felt that joy and this ridiculous, like crying because of one man, I started to dance and sing and really express my joy. So to make a long story short, that was my medicine. And I practiced this medicine for about 10 months. And every time I would do it, it was shorter. Every time the interval between going into the forest was longer. And at some point, it was just like, ha! And the pain was gone. And I got to the point where I would just wake up in the morning feeling so much joy, just happy for no reason. And I was thinking of this man, and it was like nothing there anymore, no more pain. So it took about 10 months. But this was a powerful, and then there was some other, I had some huge like awakening of like really seeing my life as a movie. While I was in that forest, I was able to see my life in a whole different way, that I could step out of myself and actually witness myself and my life in all the scenarios, and seeing all those dynamics with this man who I thought we had a sacred partnership, and I actually told everyone I live in a sacred partnership. And we actually created already that we're gonna go be on stage in front of hundreds of people, and we share about sacred partnership, we inspire others about sacred partnership. But I really became aware by suddenly seeing the relationship outside. Instead of being in it, I was able to see it from outside. And I actually saw this relationship was deeply dysfunctioning. There was a lot of dependency. There was a lot of very subtle abuse. And there was a lot of subtle control on both sides. I saw my own, the way I controlled him and the way he controlled me. And suddenly this whole relationship was just such an opener. And there was just this huge awakening. And I saw the patterns, all these patterns were related to the patterns I grew up in childhood, because when we live in a dynamic with mother and father, there's a certain familiarity. And of course, I attracted a man who was a similar dynamics between I had with my mother and my father, especially my father. So I saw these dynamics suddenly playing out again. I saw myself in a whole new way. And that was such a deep healing that afterwards I attracted many women that were going through similar situations in relationships and similar dynamics. And that's how I actually started creating a coaching business, by supporting other women by transmuting their pain into joy.
So Sabina, I'm really, really glad that first of all, that you exist. I've always, and one of the things I really like about listening to you is that you're always willing to share where your responsibility comes in, that you're not a victim. And I would like actually each of our co-hosts to consider the words of the shaman who told you the medicine is in your pain. That is something with which I think is so important and so true. So I would like each of our co-hosts to address that. The medicine is in your pain, starting with Pete. Pete, come on board, please, and just let us know if you have ever thought of that, and if you have, how.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. If not, I will let you know, Pete.
Okay, yes. So these groups I was doing when I was 17, 18, I was in a long-term relationship, had 2 boys, separated. My sister died first around 27. So that was 8 years later. Then I separated with my partner. So it took me back to the tools and the protocols I had learned in these groups, which is in, let's just say, point of reference to what the shaman said. And so I had to brush off the cobwebs of all these tools that were just buried. I kind of ran away from that, should I say, or that way of life and got a bit stuck in the mainstream. So 100%, you know, pain, I mean, there's so many things with words. I don't really want to go down that one, but you know, I more witness myself now, as opposed to if something comes up, I will honor myself to go in it, you know, and to go in and come out of it. So at that period of time, around 28, 29, I had never ever felt what potentially heartbroken was until that time. Now, I will just say it's brought up my own heartache, you know. So if anything, when she broke my heart, he broke my heart. It's actually a gift, opportunity to look at our already potential broken heart, our pain, you know, and our trauma. So having these techniques then, as well as Jinshin later on in my life, it really brought me into going through that pain. And you know, people can talk about it intellectually and they've read it from books and stuff, but when you actually are reliving the experience, it's just a whole nother ball game, you know, and not knowing what to expect. So the pain thing, and many words, I will use many words here, but I just turn them on their head. Really, they're just they're more of a witness, because I see they're all programs, or a form of program. You know, I'm so sensitive, this, that, etc., emotional. You know, not to put them down. That is a truth. However, I could wake up in the rising and feel like I'm depressed, you know, in the early stages, or feel I don't want to get out of bed. But when you push through it, and then if you just use that term, that they are just programs, to just reprogram your mind. You know, unfortunately, we've been programmed in a way that pain, you could say pain is no pain, no gain, but that pain and certain things are detrimental to us. However, you go through that and you just blossom, you know, and it's just an opportunity to work through, to come alive, to be honest, to come alive. This, and what I was going to say on the last last bit when I was talking, it's not a, I'm going to use this word, so not such an easy journey, but I'm going to say it is easy, simple. However, that's why, who wants to look at our pain? Who wants to look at ourselves? Who wants to be accountable? Who wants to be responsible? Who wants to see that they're co-creating the scenario? Who wants to take their 50% or 80% of a bad relationships, you know? And most people just in guilt and blame, guilt, blame. So not many people really want to do that. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm 100% accountable for everything in my life, you know, and then it's my choice to move away from it, bring in healthy boundaries, whatever it is at that point. So going back to pain, hence me doing ice baths, you know. You could say that's pain, but I've had so many, to say, epiphany after epiphany. Jinshin brings me epiphanies, saunas, epiphanies, the food, epiphanies in the kitchen, and like I'm in a meditation. So when you mentioned about getting in the right state frame of mind before we make it such a respectful meditation kind of eating, literally with our young one. It's like, right, meditation time, meditation food, meditation eating. So, you know, if I'm thinking all different things, anyone's thinking all different things, it's going into the food, into our bodies. Hence, when we was doing when 17 years doing the CAP Simply Rogers, I would have to show the staff this kind of technique without them getting too triggered and projecting. These kind of techniques, you know, are just, and you can't put them in words. I did it a few times and people think they got it, but it's you would have it if you would just be doing it if you had got it. You know, our mind's such full of trickery, and when people say I know, so if we change that word to I've embodied, I've experienced, then a lot of people wouldn't be using the I know as much because it's just thrown all over the place, and it's as if they really have embodied it, experienced it. So pain on a level, going through it, if you have to go through it, just jump in it. I've always blossomed, and if I wobble about anything that comes in my life, it's kind of with the fear, false evidence appearing real. There are a couple of things that are very prominent in our life that can keep us down and very stuck, stagnant.
That's interesting you use the word stuck, because I think most of us are stuck in only one way it needs to be. And I would like to really add here something that I think most of us do not realize or have forgotten. Our hearts are meant to feel pain. It is built for that. This is how it becomes stronger, literally, physically stronger. We need to be open to feel pain. Like Sabina said, she went into the forest and she just threw her body, and the screams and the yells and things like coming out of her mouth and her nose. We need to be able to be fully open to whatever shows up in pain, rather than doing any and everything. Like Sabina said, she went to the shaman thinking ayahuasca is what he was going to prescribe. And he said, no, the pain is the medicine, and the medicine is the pain. And it's one of the most useful gifts that we can give you here today, is that pain is not to be feared, ever. It's in the pain where we find ourselves. It is wonderful and joyful to go and whirl and to be dancing and to feel the sun in our faces and to eat watermelons by the beach and go into the mountains and just lay still on the grass with the trees growing beneath us and around us, and just be one with the earth and ground ourselves. That's necessary to feel pain. One has to feel pain in order to feel joy. One has to feel joy in order to feel pain. Because just like I cannot separate the palm of my hand from the back of my hand, we cannot separate pain from joy. It's the same hand. It's just how we visualize our lives and what we think we should be feeling. If we let go of the shoulds, we begin to realize that everything serves our highest, most elevated selves. So with that in mind, Phil, can you please come along and let us know what you think of the phrase, the medicine is the pain is the medicine?
Yeah, that's a deep one, isn't it? It's great, because if I hadn't have been experiencing a great deal of pain emotionally, physically and spiritually, I wouldn't have changed, right? I'd have just stayed the same. So, we're lucky that we experience pain. People are lucky that they don't experience pain, right? It's whichever way you look at it. I feel really grateful for the pain that I've experienced in my life, because it's driven me to grow. It's driven me to go, what is that pain? What is that numbness that I'm feeling? What is that exhaustion that I feel every day? Why can't I breathe properly? Why does my body hurt? And I gave up with the doctors because they had no answers at all for my pain, emotionally, physically, so certainly not spiritually. So it's the pain that's driven me. It's given me the passion. Passion means to suffer, right? So it's given me the suffering. The pain gave me the suffering, which ultimately gave me the joy, which gave me the breakthrough, which has led me to a very enriched life where I've traveled quite a lot and I've met amazing people. And take Pete that's on the show, for example. If I hadn't have suffered and been in pain, it wouldn't have driven me to explore emotionally, spiritually, physically. And Pete's pain wouldn't have driven him to explore. We would never have met. and it's the same with the relationship that I'm in now with my beautiful partner. If she hadn't have experienced the pain for her, she wouldn't have been driven to do her journey. We would never have met. So I'm very grateful on lots of levels, because my life isn't mundane. I don't live a mundane life. And it's the pain that's driven me to explore, to travel, to meet people, to open my mind. It's taken me out of the superficial to really desire the depth and the breadth of life, so we can meet people. And, you know, what's their pain? What drives them? What's their pain led them to explore, to find? And that's really where, what for lots of us, that creates the journey, and that creates the experience and the wisdom. You know, for me, the real wisdom that I've gained has come from the search of relief from the pain, to go in the woods and scream, to go in the woods and smash logs against logs, you know, to go. When I lived on a farm, when I felt pain, I used to go down to the farm and split the farmer's logs, because that for me was pain relief. That would written, and through that work and that physical movement of my body would actually lead me to breakthroughs and realizations. And that's why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And there's lots of ways you can go out in the woods and scream, which Sabina's done, clearly. I've done, lots of people do. You know, I found chopping wood really useful, because for me, that was something that was really constructive. It did the old man, the farmer, a favour, because he got his firewood split. And I got to release tension in my body. And within that, I got to let go. And then from that came wisdom, pearls of wisdom and nuggets within those moments. And also with what Pete says, in the sauna, sometimes you can get a really hot sauna, really cold shower. That creates flow and movement. And the flow and the movement, whatever it is, flow and movement. You've got to have the movement, you've got to have flow. And with that comes the flow and the movement in mind, body, and spirit.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think the most incredible beauty of pain is that it opens us up. At least it has the ability to do that, but only if we are willing to see it as that and use it to do that. It opens us up to parts of ourselves that hitherto we had not discovered. And usually it's the parts of ourselves that was most lacking in our lives and for which we were yearning by seeking out someone else rather than going within. So the answers are never without us, they're within, which of course is what Sabina learned for her own self. The most amazing gift I think that Sabina was ever given were her parents, and also this gentleman driving away, never to be seen again. Of course, somebody listening to me say that would say, what a horrible, nasty, cold-hearted thing you just said. But it's what we do with it, whether it becomes a diamond in the rough and then becomes this brilliant shining diamond, which I see Sabina as now. And without what she allowed herself to experience, I mean, she could have just gone under ayahuasca and alcohol, goodness knows what, and destroyed her life, but she did not. It's a choice. It's always a choice. And I think it was brilliant, Sabina, that you went and you sought out 2 coaches, and one of them was a shaman, just like how Pete said he went to Jinsen Jiu-Jitsu. So that is why I think it's so important for children also to be exposed to Eastern, what we call Eastern philosophies and martial arts, ways of movement. Because when I look at the Shaolin Temple, I think that must be the most perfect life. When I was studying with Thich Nhat Hanh, I remember once going to retreat with him. And of course, because he's a teacher of the Buddha, there's a lot of talking about pain and suffering. And I remember him saying, pain is necessary. Suffering is optional. So it's what we do with the pain that's important. People are suffering is because they keep reliving the pain and reburying it over and over rather than making friends with it, looking at it as the opening that they need to open themselves up. If you look at the oyster, how did a pearl, how does a pearl become so beautiful and shiny? Look what it has to go through first. So we see it everywhere in nature, actually, everywhere. Look at birthing. So it's very, very important to be aware that we're not thrown here willy-nilly and just meant to suffer. Pain is necessary, but suffering is optional. And I'd like people, those who are listening today, to share this with others who they know are in a lot of pain right now, because I think this might be exactly what they need to hear. We never know when we say something or we share our stories, who it will affect. I remember in Jack Canfield writing the first episode of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And there was a story there about this man and this woman. They passed each other on the road. And she usually says hello to people. She always said hello to people. And she always smiled. And one day this man came up to her and thanked her. And she said, "What for?" And he said, "You passed me the other day and you really looked at me. You looked at me. And you smiled. I was on my way to kill myself." But that connection was so deep for him that another human being passing him would look him straight in the eyes and say hello. How many times have we passed people on the street, especially the homeless, and not look them straight in the eye and say hello? Of course, we have to also appreciate the fact that if they're high in drugs, we need to just keep moving. There are times when you need to be aware, of course, when there's danger and where there's not. But I make it a point to say hello to those who do not seem dangerous and to even go out of my way to do so. Because you never know that short span of connection, what it will do with another human being. And this is why this show exists, called Being Healthy. There are many ways to be healthy. I think the only really path that we need in this life is to be conscious of our motives, conscious of our actions, and take responsibility for them, which is really why I like that Sabina could have gone into this blame thing with this man, but then she also came to the place by embracing the pain to take responsibility for the fact that this was just another recreated relationship left over from her parents that had not been healed as yet. And so healing is our birthright. Healing is something that doesn't happen overnight nor without us. We have to want it, we have to set our intention for it, and we have to be willing to live out the messes and the gullies and all of the places in which we do not wish to go in ourselves, which is why I have a day of silence every week, because I want to be able not to be forced into pain, but to address it on my own terms, which is meaning that I give it time. And I create a day of silence when all I feel is pain, if it's there, or all I feel is joy, if it's there, because it's the same thing. Like I said before, it's the same hand. One side is pain and the other is joy. So it's important to just be open to ourselves. It's important to spend time with ourselves. And it's like Phil said, he would not have met this partner with whom he is right now had it not been for pain on her end. So welcome it, embrace it. Do not live in it. Do not, become totally and completely immersed into it. So the point where that's all you're looking for and all you want, it's just use it as the opening, the knowing that you are this diamond that's been cut at the moment, and that you need to go within and not without. So I would like each of our co-hosts here to wrap up by giving one or two or three sentences of what they think pain has given them. What's the greatest gift they got from it, starting with Pete?
An awareness of death and life and death. Yes, I'm going to say that my death experience.
You're breaking up, Pete.
Okay.
Pete,
How about,
you're breaking up.
Okay.
So No, Pete, what I'd like you to do is to log off and log right back on, and hopefully that will work, if you don't mind. And then I will just go to Sabina in the meantime while you log off and come back on. Sabina?
Yes.
Come on in. Can you hear me, Sabina? So we seem to be having... Go ahead, Sabina, please. Go ahead. Thanks.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Sabina, absolutely. Yes, go ahead. Yes, Sabina.
So for me, pain is really a catalyst, and to really feel fully what is actually going on within me, because we are told, this is the program, that pain is bad. We have to do whatever we can to avoid pain or suppress pain or deny it. But when we actually feel it, pain, that's when something opens up. And that's when really healing takes place and the heart really opens. That's what I learned from this whole journey. I started to really love myself in a way that I couldn't before. And I actually literally became a different person just by facing my pain and moving through it, because pain has to be moved through. When we get to the other side, that's when we get into joy. And then actually what we can experience is so beautiful. So it's the journey of moving through instead of being afraid of it, and facing, whatever wants to come through. But basically something opens up when we face our pain, and then we become lighter and more joyful.
Wonderful. For now, Pete is back. Pete, go ahead, please. Thank you. You just need to unmute yourself first, please, Pete. Unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
I'll do that. Beautiful story, Sabina and Phil. Thank you ever so much. So yeah, through coming through that, then we can help others. This is such a beautiful thing. Each time I've blossomed, each time there's nothing I've lost that is of any value. So it's been epic in terms of a mindset as well. So I share that with others and be the example of that, really. And really aspire to stay on top and reprogram up. But we're like computers, reprogram the mind. It's the mind. So it's been beautiful to come through that and share that with other people and share it here and hear you share your experience as well, Dorit.
Thank you very much, Pete. Phil, please.
A sentence, okay. So I was just listening to Sabina and Pete, and I would say self-realization is probably the biggest gift that pain has given me, as in, not that I'm a realized being, but the self-realization is realizing that I can do something about it, realizing that I am responsible for my journey, my story, my life, what's going on and what's going to go on.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Sabina, I think you've got, or are we late with this? You've got a presentation with John coming up soon, a workshop, maybe? Sabina, I don't know if you can hear me. If you can, I will come back to you in a moment. Pete, I know you have a book. Could you talk quickly, just one or two sentences about your recipe book, please?
Oh, yeah, I have a festival recipe book, ebook, which people mentioned, people was asking over the many years, and have a bread book as well, which has really took us into a more deeper look into the bread, bringing it back to kind of the original, more Essene bread, Food 7, etc. So, and we're about to launch, hopefully, maybe in the next so many days, herbal cracker, which is really designed for potential benefits for circulation, the heart, parasites, different crackers for different stories, projects.
Brilliant. Sabina, did you hear that Pete now has a book on the living bread?
Yes, that sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing, Pete. And So you mentioned I have a workshop coming up. No, that was last weekend. We had our masterclass, but I have nothing coming up this week.
Great, thank you. So just one thing you'd like to leave our audience with when it comes to pain, just one thing you'd like them to, if they're in the deepest part of their pain right now, and they're saying, there's no way I'm going to get through this one more minute, much less another day, what would you say to them? Sabina, that would be you. What would you say to them?
Yeah. I would say, pain is a communicator. It's actually the messenger that something needs to be paid attention to. Something is out of harmony, out of balance, and there's an opportunity here and a lesson.
Absolutely, yes. And what I would say is do exactly what Sabina did, seek out a coach, seek out others who professionally, this is what they do, they can help you, but they've been through it themselves, they know what this is like, they've been there, and they wish to really address it with you. But more than that, they wish to address you in the place where you are at the moment. They are the ones who can extend a hand and pull you out of it, and just keep going from one to another. If somebody doesn't work out, try somebody else, But also know that if you're in pain, it means that you're about to have a major breakthrough. That's what I found in my life, that pain is always the precursor for major breakthrough. So I'd like to thank all of our co-hosts today who have been here to assist us in looking at the pain that they themselves have really found to be a representation of being the pathway to the place where they find themselves now, in a place that is a lot much more to celebrate than what it would have been without the pain. So thank you everyone for coming. This is the Being Healthy live stream. We ask you to please subscribe and share this so that others can benefit as well. We thank all of our co-hosts. Each and every one of my co-hosts is just absolutely a gift to me and to the rest of the world. And I want to thank you all. And we will be back next week, same place, same time. This is our new time. I know it's new for many people, and people are still looking for us on Thursdays. We're no longer there. Hopefully this will get out soon to everyone, that we're now on Fridays at 12 o'clock, 12 noon, Pacific Coast time, or UK time, 8 p.m. So 8 in the evening. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you all. And please share your stories with us in the comments below, even after we've come off of the live stream. Bye for now.